name's Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we're looking at Barenpark, a 2 to 4 player competitive tile placement game, because you're going to be placing tiles on your player board that splashes some drafting in there, because you need to pick the right tiles for you at the right time, and pattern building, because if you don't place those tiles on the right spot or in the right orientation, you don't stand a chance of winning. So you're in a world where town planners have decided in their infinite wisdom that bears of all shapes and sizes are the most watchable animal of all. And it's your job as Johnny or Jane Construction to make sure you make the best home away from home for these lovely animals. So let's see how this plays and whether this could be the next game for you. So the object of the game is to be the player with the most points by placing these scoring tiles, represented here by animal enclosures and here by animal houses, on your park areas. So you'll each have a starting park area and you'll all be able to gain access to up to 3 more park areas to help expand and ultimately complete your park, because as soon as at least one player has placed tiles on all spaces on all 4 park areas, the game will then end. So you'll see these non-scoring green area tiles will kind of act like bridges between other tiles you place and will be helpful because of their shape and size in filling in the gaps throughout. So you'll set up the game communally with a number of tiles dependent on the player count, and there's a helpful guide for setting up the game on the player board itself. So each player turn is broken down into 2 phases. The first is where you're going to place tiles on your park areas. So depending on whether you're the first, second, third or fourth player, you'll get a different green area tile. But ultimately what you're trying to do is cover up the icons found in your park areas that will then swiftly allow you to move to phase 2, where you're going to evaluate those icons and take the relevant action. So here we've covered up the green wheelbarrow, and what that means that in phase 2 we're going to be able to take a green area tile. But let's just say we covered up this cement truck, and that means we get to do similarly but take the top of any of these animal house tiles, and you'll see the first person to take one of these tiles from a pile will get more points than the person that takes the last one. When we cover up these construction workers, that means we can then grab one of these 2 piles of park areas and then place them either at the top or either side of the starting park area. The only rule about expanding your park is that you cannot place any below the park entrance at the bottom of your starting park area. Now the only limitation is you cannot place a tile that would ultimately cover up this pit area, because that's reserved for the time where you're able to complete each of your park areas and place one of these bear statues in its place. And you'll see the quicker you complete each of these park areas represented by the separate tiles, the more points you're going to gain access to, because here in the 2-player game you get 16 points for the first person, but that will whittle down to 2 points by the end. So the last icon is this orange excavator one that allows you to take these bespoke animal enclosures. It's also worth noting at this point that tiles you take from icons can be downgraded. So when you do the orange excavator, you could take an animal house tile or a green area tile instead. The same when you get the white cement truck, you can downgrade it to a green area tile. So when you place that first green area tile in your starting area, you can place it anywhere, obviously except the bear's pit, but any future tiles that you place have to be placed orthogonally adjacent to a tile you already have done so. And that means either above, below, to the left or to the right of it. So play is going to continue like that until at least one player has covered up all the symbols on
blah 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 blah.
And at that point each player will then get 1 remaining turn, and as you'd expect you're going to score up simply by adding the number of victory points on all of the tiles you played throughout the game, including those bear statues. So there are some variant rules. You can start by being randomly assigned these achievements, and that will give you objectives, if you like, or missions that will give you access to more points at the end of the game. So there are some other fancy variant rules that really do add to replayability on offer, but the bare bones of how you play the game is fairly straightforward. but the way you approach it is going to be different each and every time you play. So that's how this game plays. What did I think of it? So who is this for? Well, it's a lightweight game, but it really does belie its skinny complexity with the amount that's on offer in this box. Perhaps you like the idea of tile placement games, but you're also a jigsaw enthusiast. Well, what you'll find here is those two in perfect harmony. Perhaps you've got an affinity for bears, or you like game designers with double-barreled surnames. Well, this game says check and check to both of those requirements. So you might want to consider this if you liked Patchwork, published also by Lookout Games, or Indian Summer, published by Edition Spielweise. Now I'm probably murdering that pronunciation, so I do apologise. So in terms of gameplay, well, it's a real marvel, the attention to detail on offer here, and the amount that they've crammed into this lightweight game. I can just tell that everything has been well planned to synergize together in a mechanical sense. There's nothing here that doesn't work well together. You know, all of the different actions that you can take when placing your tiles on the board, it just requires so much planning and so much strategy. So you really are going to enjoy each game and maximizing the opportunities available to you, which means that replayability is really high. Even in the immediate aftermath of playing a game, you can't wait to get back and try and min-max and solve that puzzle in order to gain the most points possible. Most games like this can have decent replayability, but they're more like, yeah, I've done that for tonight, I'll play again next week. This allows you to keep swinging it back and keep enjoying the experience. So there's a secondary list of expectations from a great game, and some of those include excellent player scaling. Well, Barenpark ticks that box, but also all the additional play variants that are on offer. Now this is a good game on its own, but then you get to add achievements in there or missions on top of that to really try and flesh out and stick to a certain set of guidelines when building your parks. And again, both of those things only enhance the experience. So it's going to be next to impossible after everything that's crammed into this game for there not to be some downsides. But really I can only point to one that being an issue, and that's setup time. So for a lightweight game, you want it to be super easy to get to the table. And yes, it's super easy to learn, but because of all of those components, it is going to take you longer than games of its ilk to set up. So if you'll excuse me for being a little bit facetious as well, and indulge me in a little bit of role play, it is an example thematically about how this game works. So Timmy, what would you like to go and see next? How about the koala enclosure, Mummy? Why am I playing Mummy, and why has she got such a deep voice? I don't think that's a good idea, Timmy, because look, it's behind all those toilets there, those outhouses, and it really does stink the place down. Timmy proceeds to bawl his eyes out. Oh, Timmy, why don't we just get you an ice cream? Yes, okay, Mummy, that's fine. Okay, get your Wellington boots on because we're going to have to wade through a river to get there. With all that nonsense aside, what I'm saying is you are not going to get extra points for trying to organise your park as if you would one in real life. If you want to maximise points, you just need to fit anything everywhere. So for those that might be upset by that sort of departure from theme, then maybe you need to look elsewhere, but I don't see how that could possibly detract from what ultimately is a fantastic gameplay experience. So moving swiftly on to the look and feel and theme of the game, this is where things get a little bit more meh. It's got that Euro game style art that just really doesn't inspire much. There's some strange box inserts that thankfully you don't have to use, but I literally cannot fathom what their purpose is. The theme is a lightweight game, it is what it is, you're creating a bear park. Referring back to my aforementioned jokes, leave logic at the door, you're just going for maximum points, read the rules, make the most of it. So, but this is not by any means this game's strength, that lies in its gameplay. So with all that being said, Dice vs Cards going to give a final score of 8 out of 10. I can't remember a lightweight game in recent memory that I've enjoyed more than this. So that's it from me. I'll see you next time.
Think about how your visitors will experience the zoo. You may choose to put the most anticipated animals in the back of the park. You should also carefully plan placements for restaurants, restrooms, blah blah blah. Not in this park.